Hello, everybody. So I'm currently on vacation, so please forgive the lack of video as well as the audio quality if it's super bad. But I want to get this video out there because I will be releasing what I've been teasing for a couple weeks now in terms of my new project for the channel. And it's actually not going to be on my channel, but it's called the Good Keyboard Friends Podcast. Yes, it's a podcast. It's going to be me as a co-host, along with other co-hosts such as Blacksimon, Tanghus, or Tanghus, he's from Denmark, and James, or Jomes, the designer from Taiwan. So it's going to be the four of us. We're not going to all be on the same episode every single episode because, one of us may have something going on in life, our schedules may not match up, and so on and so forth. But we're going to have at least one co-host on every single episode. It's either going to be a one-on-one episode where it's one co-host and another co-host will interview each other. It's going to be a more in-depth episode if it's just two people, or we're going to have a guest. Sometimes we're going to have a guest with all four of our co-hosts. Sometimes it's going to be one co-host and one guest, which will also be a more in-depth interview because there's less people, and so on and so forth. So this first episode that we'll be releasing, it's going to be me, Blacksimon, James, and our special guest, Jack, from Piketty. Since this was recorded the day after the Iowa Keyboard Meetup, I decided to go to Jack's house and record there and had Blacksimon and James join in virtually. We had a blast, and normally podcast episodes will not be 2 hours, but we had so much to talk about, and we still have stuff to talk about for future episodes with Jack, that it got to nearly 2 hours. We're going to try and aim for 1 hour. If we exceed that, 1.5 hours at most. But yeah, this was a special episode, so we just wanted to keep it rolling. It's our first podcast episode, so please forgive any sort of audio quirks and so on and so forth. It's also going to be audio only to start with, just because it's easier for us to edit and to handle and to have to deal with logistically with either our guests or each other. In the future, we'll probably do some sort of video element, but for now and for the near future, it's just audio only. And the premise of this podcast is basically, it's as if we're just sitting around having a great conversation about stuff in the keyboard hobby. It's not always going to be keyboard related. It could be something fun like talking about our favorite movies, talking about what happened in real life that we want to bring up. Obviously, most of the conversation will be focused around keyboard-related topics, but as the title of the podcast suggests, the Good Keyboard Friends Podcast, we just want to bring good keyboard friends onto the podcast and record with them. It's going to be a blast. We're all super excited, and I'll link the podcast channel down in the video description. Something else that I'll also link will be all of our socials, not only for you, the listener, to reach out to us, but for the final section of podcast episodes, which are the Good Keyboard Friend nominations. So basically, the podcast format will go as follows. It'll be introductions and sponsors if we have any. And by the way, there are no actual sponsors for this first episode. So I named off Piketty and Warrior Tattoo Studio. They're not sponsors because Jack wound down Piketty and Warrior Tattoo Studio had no idea that I was going to shout them out. So it's a bit of fun. When we get actual sponsors, you'll absolutely know because we'll link their information down in that video's description. But just remember, this first episode, they're not actually sponsors. So please don't reach out to Jack for a free macro pad or reach out to Warrior Tattoo Studios for a free tattoo or anything like that. But yeah, after intros and sponsors, it's going to be a mostly free-form and free-flowing type of format. We'll have questions and topics to bring up to our guests and other co-hosts, but for the most part, it's just a bunch of friends talking with each other. After a while, once we reach that hour or hour and a half mark, we're going to transition to the end of the podcast for a segment called the Good Keyboard Friend of the Week. Basically, I wanted to shout out a good keyboard friend. For this first inaugural episode, I allowed all of us to shout one out, but for future episodes, we're just going to pick one. The premise of it is to highlight and shout out a good keyboard friend. And this is why I want you, the listener, to reach out to us through our socials. Nominate a good keyboard friend, and we'll shout him out for you. For example, if you want to shout out Bob, which was an example that I just came up with in the first episode. If you want to shout out Bob for getting you into the keyboard hobby back in 2017 and buying you a Keychron K4, if you want to shout out someone else for being a good keyboard friend, we want positivity here, or we want someone that's made a lasting impact in your life. Now, it doesn't have to be solely keyboard related because we know that keyboards affect other parts of our lives, but for the most part, we'll try and keep the nominations towards keyboard related people. I mean, I shouted out my late friend Matt Davis, who was not part of the keyboard hobby, but I felt like I wanted to shout him out because he was just a good friend in general. The new project is a podcast with me, Blacksimon, Tanghus, and James. We're going to have guests on. It's going to be a weekly episode. Sometimes it'll be bi-weekly if we get our schedules lined up correctly. And I hope it'll truly be useful and fun for you, the listeners, to listen to. So please check out the podcast channel. Again, I'll link it in the description below. Share that channel with your friends. Share the episodes with your friends. And be on the lookout for amazing guests and episodes in the near future. We have a stacked list of guests that have agreed to get onto the podcast. And we're super excited to talk to them and give them a platform to talk about their lives, keyboard-related topics, and so on and so forth. And again, please reach out and send your nominations for the Good Keyboard Friend of the Week. And for each week and each episode, we'll pick and choose someone to shout out. I'm super excited. I hope that you all are super excited. We love you all, and see you next time.